This is today's Public Safety and Emergency Services Committee for Thursday, September 23rd, 2021. If you'll all join me in a pledge to the flag.
Ganga, Vero, Fagione,
Here.
Sierra, Sassy,
Here.
Lujan, Hines.
Here, thank you. Before we get started, I watched Jim O'Donnell's meeting the other day, and he mentioned hazard pay for some of our employees out of that federal money. So since we have our probation director, representatives from the sheriff's office, from the 911 center, I would like all of you to please figure out how many people in your department would qualify for hazard pay. I don't know if it's going to be approved. Don't make any promises, because it obviously has to be a vote of the legislature. We're coming into some federal money, and it has been suggested that that would be a good use for some of the money. I think the definition Mr. O'Donnell used the other day were people that had to come to work every day, not people that were stuck, or working from home. So I think every deputy, every CO, every 911 dispatcher, every probation officer, and then you have to decide basically what people had to report to the office every day and what people stayed home to separate out. I don't know if ultimately the county exec is going to approve it and give it to everybody, or just give it to the people that had to come to work and didn't stay home. But I think it's a pretty good idea, and so if you could all put that together for us. Eventually it'll probably go through Mr. Vero's committee and personnel, and probably Ways and Means as well. But we do have that federal money, and I know other counties are using it, part of it for that purpose. And I think it would be a nice gesture to all our employees who brought us through the epidemic. And they're still bringing us through it, for that matter. So first up on the agenda, I have Mr. Davidian from the Probation Department. Letter A, request to reclassify Executive Secretary and Administrative Assistant Grade 11 to an Executive Assistant Grade 14. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Sassy and Mr. Vero. Okay, Mr. Davidian, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. This matter was in front of P&C on Monday and was approved. These position reclassifications involve the two administrative positions within the probation department that serve directly to the director and are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the $11.5 million budget within the agency. They requested a desk audit after submitting their questionnaire. The desk audit was completed in late 2019, and you, I believe, have the report that was filed from Human Resources in January of 2020. These are intricate, very important positions within the department, and the fact that those two positions are responsible, again, for all the financial aspects and all the processing of any claim, any workers' comp, any disability, any FEMLA leaves, as well as payroll and, again, ordering and day-to-day operations.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this matter? Mr. Vero, your committee handled this? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried, unanimous. Next, we have letter B, request to reclassify Secretary to Administrative Assistant 2, Grade 9, to Executive Secretary to Administrative Assistant, Grade 11. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Sassy, Mr. Vero. Go ahead, Director.
I'll rely on my previous comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions on that? Mr. Vero, personnel did this unanimous as well? All right. Okay, seeing no comments, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up, we have the Sheriff's Office, and we will have a discussion on the Corrections Report first. A motion to discuss the Corrections Report, please. Mr. Fagione and Mr. Sassy. And we have Colonel Mealy with us today. Welcome, Colonel. You want to highlight the report for us? say the Marshall count was 43? That's down a lot, isn't it? Okay. How is the COVID conditions at the jail? Are we doing well with that still? Is your microphone on? Yes. What's the percentage of staff vaccinated? Do you have that? I didn't prepare you for that question, but I'm just curious. You don't? Okay. And what about the population in the jail for vaccinations? Are you aware of that? Anybody have any questions for the Colonel? Let the record reflect Legislator Stiganga has joined us. Okay, no questions for the Colonel. You're getting off easy this month. Thank you very much. Next up, letter B, the Sheriff's Report. I see Deputy Under Sheriff Weed is with us. I have a motion to discuss the Sheriff's Report, please. Mr. Sassy and Mr. Sierra. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, Tony, can you turn the microphone on, please? For those of you in the audience, you can't hear a word if you're watching this from home if the microphone's not on. That's why it's so important. Yep,
Now
you're
it's
good
on?
now. You're good.
Is there any questions on the report? Leave it as it stands. Another busy month in Sheriff's Office. Between training, arrests.
Do you have a status on the cameras? That's the topic of interest for everybody, I think, right now.
So we're still waiting in law for the cameras. They say it's not a sole source, but they're trying other avenues. Sourcewell contract. Right now, there's only one other agency in the county that does not use Axon body cameras. So I think it's a force multiplier if we stick with the same program everybody else is using. Meaning if I'm working with 4 different agencies that are all using the same camera system, and one of them chooses to draw their taser for whatever reason, all of our body cameras will activate. If we go on a standalone platform, it's not going to work that way. The Axon also provides the ability for us to give a link right to the DA's office so they have access to all the camera footage for whatever cases we have. It just makes it easy transition. So we're still stuck in law waiting on that.
All right. I have questions, but it's probably executive session, so I'll talk to you offline about that. The state police is using the Axon?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a state bid for state police and state corrections. They purchased large quantities of these devices. Why they're saying there's no state bid, I don't know. There's no state contract.
Okay. Well, the opinions of our lawyers, I guess we should keep in-house for now. Anybody have any questions for the Deputy Under Sheriff?
I do have one more thing.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
So tomorrow wraps up Sheriff's Week. So we have an event at the Galleria Mall. If anybody would like to attend, it's going to be a recruitment booth. We're going to have canine demonstration, equipment demonstration, and things like that, giveaway for the kids. And if I could, I'd like to acknowledge the county executive, Assemblyman Brabenec, Senators Martucci and Skoufis for providing proclamations for the Sheriff's Office, recognizing us for Sheriff's Week, and what the membership does on a daily basis. Much appreciated.
Yes, and we appreciate all the work of the Sheriff's Office, both the deputy and the corrections side. You guys do a great job. Mr. Vero?
What are the hours there at the Galleria Mall tomorrow?
It'll be 4 to 8. We'll be right at Center Court, right outside of round 1 at the bottom of the staircases there.
Okay. Chairman Brescia?
Can I say something about that proclamation?
Sure.
I think you all received a letter from the sheriff, which was more than likely written by the undersheriff, by the tone. I received the proclamation on my desk, and actually the county executive had texted it to me early before that. And I sent an email to the sheriff that, or had an email sent that I would sign it if the full service was taken out of the proclamation. And that wasn't done. And then I got a condescending letter following that, which I think was sent to all legislators. Did you guys receive that letter?
Yes.
Okay. Well, It's a shame that that had to come back, because I asked the office if I had ever gotten a proclamation, or our office ever got a proclamation like that in the past, and they said no. And the county exec's text to me when he sent it to me was kind of surprising too, that he had never seen one like this. And we would certainly support this, or he signed it, and he had a photo op with the sheriff's office, which was nice. But I have a problem with the full service, and it was explained in the letter that we're full service, and I don't know what I'm talking about, and after all these years in office, and it was a pretty nasty letter, which wasn't deserved, but I understand it, where it's coming from. But there's a lot of things we don't do in the sheriff's office that a full-service office does. We only have one radar unit. We're not a supporting agency for many county departments, or we are a supporting agency, I stand corrected. The state police is the main office in towns or villages or cities that don't have a police department in the county of Orange. As you know, we don't handle the New York State Air Show either. We're a backup unit to the state police handle that, and other events. We don't handle the main policing events on the Heritage Trail or in this government center. The Village of Goshen handles things here. So I wasn't being, because, and I get a letter back that, this goes out to the sheriff's office, like I'm now supporting the sheriff's office, which I certainly have. And I dare say that there's been no legislator in the history of the legislature that supported the sheriff's office more than me. That's why I was upset with this letter. It was wrong in every way, every fashion. All they had to do was take full service off, or we could have had the debate instead of sending that letter out. It was wrong, and I don't want to go on about this, Chairman, but I'm just going to say that, I supported that office more than anybody in the history of this legislature. I know you and Tom Fagione are up there, but you've been here a little bit less time than me. I'm really disheartened with it, and I just don't know what to say. I mean, I would have signed it if not for that one thing in there. And maybe we will be a full-service office one day. We aren't today. And the deputy sheriffs know that, and I think the correction officers know that. If they don't, they should. And it's a shame that that had to be politicized like that, but that's all they had to do. I never had a proclamation like this before. I wish we did in the past, and I certainly would have signed it, and the county exec would have signed it.
Just so we're clear, the proclamation came from the New York State Sheriff's Association, not from the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Were these sent by the New York State Sheriff's Office in the past?
That I am unaware of, but this came from the New York State Sheriff's Association.
Okay.
In recognition of Sheriff's Week. Not authored by us. It was taken and sent out at the direction of the New York State Sheriff's Association. And a lot of those events you just talk about, we 100% can handle on our own.
But
Double
we
our
don't.
manpower.
Okay, understood.
Double our manpower. And we can handle all those events without being cooperative partners with those other agencies you mentioned.
And Anthony, I don't have one bit of doubt that you could do that. But we're not doing it presently, so that's why it shouldn't say it right today.
But we
Also-
do.
And also,
Majority
Anthony-
of things you said in your letter, we do. We have investigators that are on task force that investigate homicides every day.
Okay. Well, I didn't even get an email back or anything to discuss it. I just got this copy of the letter that all legislators got, telling me how much I don't know about public safety and law enforcement. Okay? And also, let me add, Anthony, that the county exec probably 2 or 3 weeks ago told me that he was very concerned about the $11 million that is requested from the Office of the Sheriff in this year's budget, or next year's budget. It concerns him a lot, and it concerns me. And by signing that full service, that almost says, well, we're going to give you the 11 million without even looking at it.
Well, if you break down what the $11 million was, or is for, its majority of that is for compensation, for collective bargaining agreements to pay for that.
Okay, well, that could have been explained. No
budget
discourse
proposal.
back at all with me on that. And, listen, I even was the mediator or the pacifist with sheriffs in the past of the county. I've been served under 3 of them now, and county execs, because there was always volatility with the sheriff's office and the county exec over the years, and there still is a little bit occasionally. And I played the pacifist in that. I tried to make amends and do anything. And believe me, I've still been very supportive, and I always will be of the sheriff's office. It just happens that I disagree with the sheriff on his candidate for office, which I'm entitled to do. And the other thing in the last 18 years that I voted against was the abolishment of the captain's position. Okay? So that's it.
with that.
That's it, Anthony, in 18 years. No, Anthony, that's it in 18 years. So I rest my case. I would have signed it if that were taken out. Thank you.
Not really sure what politics has to do with what we're talking about today, but
Yeah, okay, we don't have to. All right, I just wanted to say that, Chairman. If not for that letter, I wouldn't be saying anything, probably.
so we're clear, your stance on the sheriff's office is because of who's going to be running for office.
No, don't misinterpret what I said.
That's exactly what you said.
No, it is not exactly what I said. I said, the reason I didn't sign this petition, this proclamation, is because it has full service in there, Anthony. So I'm not going to have a debate with you right now.
It's recorded.
Okay,
We can
it
go
seems
back.
like you're having a debate, so I'm going to shut this down. What I will say for the record is the sheriff sent me the proclamation signed by the county exec, not signed by the chairman of the legislature, and my email to him said, feel free to put my name on the bottom, I'll sign it as chairman of the committee. So let the record reflect that. I took no issue with the word full service. I think the sheriff's office does a phenomenal job, especially Deputy Under Sheriff Weed with respect to the Special Operations Group. They're highly trained, more so than anybody else in this county, I will submit to you. Not to mention, the arson detection dogs, the K-9 units. I don't know how much more full service we can be. And some of these smaller municipalities rely on us for everything, whether it's warrants or whatever you name it. So I think the sheriff's office can handle anything they're called to. They may not be called to it because in some instances they're secondary, but they're a highly trained group. Ms. Spinelli, comments?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, anybody else, comments, questions? Mr. Fagione?
Chairman, thank you. I just want to say that when these days come up, these weeks come up, and you can open up the newspaper, go online, and every day is like National Hamburger Day or whatever. But when it comes to law enforcement, I'm very proud that I've always supported my local police departments and our sheriff's office, our state police, and anyone who wears the uniform. And so congratulations on a week, but every day I am very grateful for all the men and women who put on the uniform and every day step out of their houses and put themselves in harm's way to protect our communities. So thank you guys today and this week especially, but also every day. So I appreciate you guys. And just on a personal note, Tony and I, we've become friends over the years, and he invited me to a special event, if you will, a few years ago. I was scared to death, and these guys, their professionalism was beyond measure, and I am forever humbled by that experience. So thank you, and the men and the women who put the uniforms on, not just this week, but every day in their careers. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, I just want to say one more thing, short. I just want to say
Go ahead.
that I agree with what the majority leader said and Legislator Fagione. I've supported law enforcement. I support the sheriff's office. I support all law enforcement and always have and always will. And this, not signing this proclamation, I hope that's no reflection on my full 100% support for all law enforcement. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Under Sheriff.
Thank you.
Next up, we have number 3, Commissioner Casey and Deputy Commissioner Worsbicky, request to create one per diem communications system specialist, salary range $32 to $37 per hour, legislative request number 174. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Ganga and Mr. Fagione. Want to highlight that for us, Commissioner? Put the mic on, please. There you go.
Don't we turn it on? Is it on now? Okay. This went before Personnel and Compensation, I think, earlier in the week, and it passed. Yeah, it's the administrator of our radio system. Our administrator was a full-time position. He left. So we want to create a per diem position we have someone who's helping now. They're an expert at it. We'll bring them in at a per diem rate. There's still money in that full-time position that's available. So we just want to create this position. It'll give us more flexibility on when the person, we can call on them to work. And at some point, we may go full-time again, but this will help us out greatly at this point.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I know from my position on the Police Advisory Board, they set up talk groups, the police agencies and the fire departments do as well, and a lot of them had trouble setting up the talk groups. I assume this is what this person's going to be doing?
Yeah, this particular person we have in mind, we've been using, he maintains the Rockland system. He's really probably the resident expert for New York State on our system. He built it out in Rockland, he helped us with ours, knows exactly how everything works, he has workarounds. We recently had a problem with the state police were taking over Bear Mountain, Park Police is kind of going away. So we had to link the systems from Orange and Rockland with a bounce off of Putnam, and, he was right there, and the state police couldn't have been more happy with the solution he provided. So we provide a lot of basically the radio coverage for everybody in the county, and with the exception of, a couple little spots here and there, everybody's extremely happy with the system, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about the system, too. I know we made a huge capital investment, but I think it's the second best thing for public safety since we built the 911 center. I've said that a million times. I'll say it again. It's a huge investment by the county. We got some of the money back from the state and feds, but and we keep getting more. But I haven't heard any agency complain about that system, which is shocking because in the fire departments and emergency services, I know you always hear complaints about something.
A strong
and I have heard
personality.
none. Yes, I have heard none. So that's a true testament to how great the system is. Any questions on this, Mr. Fagione?
Chairman, thank you. I asked the question in PNC, and Alan was great to answer it. So I just want to ask it again. Just in terms of communications, this position, even though it's per diem, this doesn't impact the day-to-day communications between our emergency services.
No, this is sort of the system administrator, the resident expert on all those. We have 15 towers out there. We have portables and mobiles and all kinds of equipment that's out to various agencies. So all that stuff we have to make sure that all that stuff is working properly. Obviously, 911 floor is separate. This is really our radio guy. We have equipment on top of mountains that, it breaks sometimes and not at good times. And we have to get someone up there and make sure that it's operating properly. So it's an essential position. It just, this new per diem position gives us flexibility without having to go full-time at this point and not getting exactly what we want, so.
Okay, great idea. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, this is next item 4. I asked Commissioner Casey and Deputy Commissioner Cassanite to come before us today. EMS in Orange County has really been struggling, and I had the opportunity just yesterday to meet with a bunch of EMS providers in the county. There was a bike across the country for EMS, and they did a rest stop at the New Windsor Ambulance Corps. And so I spoke to a bunch of different agencies. There were people from Montgomery, Newburgh, Cornwall, New Windsor, and I'm sure there were others as well. There was even the guy with the helicopters, the Life Flight guy was there. And they all talked about some tremendous problems. So I think the first thing to do, is there anything you two want to highlight for us, and then I'll ask questions, or do you want me to just start with my
I'll just start a little bit from my perspective, and Frank's really the resident expert. He's been in EMS for, I don't even know how long, obviously a long time.
But I just need a motion to discuss this, please. I forgot that. Mr. Fagione and Mr. Ganga. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So a couple of years ago, we did an EMS response report just to give municipalities kind of an idea of what they look at, or what does it look like in your community for response times. And it varies widely across the county. In the eastern part of the county, response times are pretty good. In the western part of the county, they're not so good. This issue has come up in towns and villages across the county. There's a number of different solutions that people have come up with. I think the most important thing we can push for is to have it EMS declared an essential service, which hasn't happened yet at the state level. That would, it would make it almost like fire, where you have to come up with some type of solution and make sure it's funded properly. So right now, we sort of have this mishmash of some paid private services. There are some really well-organized and funded community services. And then there are a lot of BLS services that they're volunteers, they do the best they can. And you'll run into these areas of the county that ALS support is not what people expect it to be. ALS is Advanced Life Support Services. That's, hey, somebody's dying, we need to get ALS there, as quickly as possible. So, we're here to answer any questions you have. It's not an easy solution, even for EMTs and paramedics that work full-time. They don't get paid well. And they generally work for a couple of years until they can get hired by a police department or a fire department. They have a lot of retention problems. So it's not an easy solution. You just encourage the municipalities to kind of look at it and see what's going to work best for them, whether you create a tax district or you create a municipal funding source to fund EMS. So that's what, it's a town or municipal issue. We certainly, could start a county level system, but it would be incredibly expensive and complex. But so, that's where we're at with it. If there's any direct questions, Frank can kind of tell you what he runs Warwick ambulance, and you're a tax district out there? Yeah. Hey, why don't you step up, just.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank. Tell us what you do, and then I'll ask some questions. And I had some people point out some things to me that I
Well,
didn't
right now in the county, we run 22 EMS agencies. 9 of those are all volunteer. 9 of those are combination paid and volunteer. And then the other 3, 2 are commercial services, and 1, of course, is West Point. 5 of the agencies are tax district, like Warwick being one of them, which I belong to. New Windsor, Blooming Grove, Pine Island, and Greenwood Lake are the other 4. They seem to do not have any money, don't have any problem with monies. Of course, volunteerism is a separate issue. But this seems to run the best ways as far as being able to have monies for these agencies. New Windsor and Blooming Grove, of course, are both combination paid and volunteer. And they did that because of the fact that, in order to get enough personnel, they had to pay that personnel. These 9 other volunteer agencies that I say are all volunteer, some of them don't have the monies to pay staff, which they need to do, I'll be honest with you. The reason they don't have it is that, yes, they can bill for services, but of course, if your call volume is not there, there's not going to be enough money to pay that staff. So they have to come up with a secondary way to do this. And the only secondary way is either monies from the town or by becoming a tax district. Questions?
Yeah, agreed. One thing I learned, and I didn't know this until I think Sunday when I spoke to some people from Cornwall, they indicated that you could be 16 to take your EMT class, and then you had to be 17 to actually take the test.
That's
So
correct. You have to be 17. And the state just lowered that standard 2 years ago.
Yeah, so I think that's something that maybe some of us don't know. When we go back to our own communities, we should share that with them, because it seems to me as if maybe we could do some outreach at the high school level to get people qualified. And of course, when I mentioned that, a lot of the ambulance corps said, yeah, and then they go off to college and we lose them and never see them again. But at least maybe we could get some people moving in our community that some other community trained too. So I guess if everybody...
Yeah, myself and the fire coordinator have been working with the County Youth Bureau. The object of that was to try to push some of this into schools. They're running with this as we speak.
Right, and I'm wondering, I know we put some money in the budget for fire recruitment. I'm wondering if we have money in your budget for coming up this year for EMS recruitment, and if you think that would be a good idea.
That would be an excellent idea.
Okay.
But we are working, like I say, with the County Youth Bureau, and they're reaching out to the schools, and hopefully we can grab some of these 17-year-olds as we speak. There are some of our agencies that have junior corps. I wouldn't say there's a lot of them, but there are a few. These kids are, I'll use Warwick, for example. We have a youth group that starts at the age of 14. At the age of 17, they can start riding with us.
Yeah, that's a great idea. They do that in fire as well, I know. So you mentioned finances, and this was sort of shocking to me, and this is what I got out of the meeting with all the agencies yesterday. They tell me that to run an ambulance call, because if you count the facilities and the ambulance, and they said the stretchers alone are $50,000. They figure that it's about $1,200 to run an ambulance call, and they told me that Medicaid pays them $120,
Right.
which I know none of us are shocked by, because we see that on our nursing home. And Medicare pays them between $350 and $450.
Correct.
And so basically, they get $120 and they eat the rest. So it's a losing proposition to start. So the municipalities have to fund the ambulance corps to make it work. The numbers just don't work. They tell me that even if there's decent insurance, they get paid about $400. I think NYSHIP pays a little bit better than that, but about $400. So they're losing money the day they go out. And then, as Frank suggested, if they don't have a call volume, it's even worse. So that leads me to think that probably regional fly cars are better. Is that a solution, Frank?
That could be a solution, but that would only be a solution. You're talking ALS?
Right.
That would definitely be a solution, but we still need that transport unit. So we need those volunteers or agencies to be able to get that ambulance out.
Right. But the ambulance can roll with one person as long as the fly car gets there first, right?
Yes, it can. We have agreements with a lot of our commercial services to do that.
Right. So I think that we as a legislature could help by writing a letter to our federal partners to say, let's get real with the Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement. So do these numbers sound right that I got from these?
Yes, those numbers sound exactly correct.
Okay.
Our biggest thing is to educate our towns that, like I say, we brought up essential services before. This is something the state has to do, but we need these towns to start to realize that they have to help their communities, to help their EMS people.
Okay. So the essential service declaration, that has to come from the state of New York?
Yes,
Okay. So that would get us what advantage? Just that the towns would have to provide the service?
that someone would have to provide the service, either the towns or the county.
Well, right now, it's the town's job, correct?
Excuse me?
Right now, it's the town's job to provide the service.
Yes,
That's correct.
that's correct.
Okay. Joel, go ahead.
I heard you said there's taxable districts in the county. What is the tax rate on the EMS side?
What is the tax rate?
Yeah.
I can give you the rate. I can give you Warwick, for example. The rate in Warwick's about $1.40 per thousand.
I can give you numbers.
My tax bill comes to me at about $45 a year.
Okay, and that's above and beyond the fire tax?
That's correct. It's a separate line item on your bill.
And how many fire departments in the county are also doing EMS?
Fire departments, none. There's no fire departments in Orange County doing EMS.
Well, you're talking
As
about.
far as
You're
transports,
talking about transport. They roll the calls, but not transport.
there are some fire agents that are responding on EMS calls, but they don't do transports.
Gotcha. And do you have that number? How many are doing EMS calls?
Off the top of my head, I'd say there's 8 fire departments doing that right now.
8? And I'm not sure. This money we used on recruitment for the fire department, how was the outcome and what was the, how many recruits did we get for the money that we spent?
We'd have to ask Commissioner Tankasali that. I don't even know that we track it because the individual firehouses is where they join. I don't know that.
They do go through the.
I've never had anyone join my fire department and say I joined because the county sent out a brochure. I can tell you that.
They don't go through the fire training center for training?
They go there for training, but yeah, I guess we could ask them what made them join when they go to their first.
Is there a
firefighter.
mechanism, Mr. Casey, that we can track the recruitment?
We could certainly ask, but my sense is that recruitment, the pensions they give to the fire guys, $1 for the rest of your life, none of that works. You're either in a family that's part of emergency services or somehow you were exposed to it and you express some type of interest in it. It's good to provide it through the Youth Bureau, so it's an option. But a lot of the things that have been out there, and to a certain extent, recruitment really isn't the problem. Like was stated, the kids will join, but they go to college and they leave. And that's really the issue, is retention. It's not recruitment. Even if the EMS services were to become professionalized, they just don't pay that well for the amount of training and responsibility those paramedics and those ALS people have. They just don't, it doesn't pay as well as being a police officer or a firefighter if you're really interested in emergency services. So it's nice to have some flexibility to help some of these places recruit. A lot of the fire departments have their own recruiting systems. Vales Gate does a job with it. I know Cornwall has kids that come in, and so it's important. It'd be nice to have some additional funds to help. It'd be a tough metric to measure. I'm sure if the fire department was savvy enough, they would tell, listen, when you go to the fire training academy and they ask you, why you got interested, tell them it was the recruitment money. So there's ways around it. It helps, but it's retention and really making that service an essential service where most citizens, when they dial 911, they feel that police, fire, and everyone's coming. They don't know that it's different and they're not working today, and they simply do not understand that unless I live in Hamptonburg. We have almost no services out there at all. They contract with Blooming Grove or Goshen Ambulance. We have a fire department, no police department. So very rural town, there's only about 5,000 people in the whole town. So they came up with that solution, and it's a rural solution that, Hamptonburg that's the way we roll out there. But, as these areas become more populated, it's going to be hard for places to figure out what they want to do. Frank is a tax district guy. I'm not a tax district guy. I think it should be under municipal control. I think that you just say, look, we're going to charge you more in your tax rate, but we're going to fund our ambulance corps properly. I think it gives you more control over the funding. The ambulance corps, if they're a tax district, it's, a couple guys from the ambulance corps are collecting the money and they're counting it. Much better with municipal control on that. That's a better solution for me. The fire departments like fire districts because they get the money, they control it. So that's just my perspective on it. So there's a couple different options there on how it can be handled, but the bottom line is it's a money issue,
So they conveyed some other problems to me as well. One of them was the hospitals. They were telling me that the hospitals are so grossly understaffed that when they deliver a patient to the hospital, they have to get at least a nurse's signature or a doctor's signature on the document, and they sometimes have to wait 40 minutes for that to happen because there's no beds available, and they could leave the person. They have to transfer the person off their stretcher onto a hospital bed. And they're saying there's a big turnover problem because our emergency rooms are overwhelmed. And when I asked if they thought it was COVID related, they thought that the answer to that was no.
Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Yes, it's true. Sometimes we go into a hospital, we wait 15 to 20 minutes for them to finally get a bed for us to move the patient over. I must say they're doing the best they can, but it is a problem.
Or they go to divert. So if you're heading to St. Luke's and you get diverted, across the river to Vassar or something, what happens to that ambulance? That ambulance is off the chart until it comes back,
Right. Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just went over this at NICEC last week. This is not just a problem in our area. This is a problem throughout the state, especially up in a lot of the rural counties. They're looking at minimum 45 minutes for even an answer of a phone call. So they are talking about looking to do county. And just so you know, you do pay for the ambulance for Blooming Grove because they pay the town of Blooming Grove for that ambulance district.
Right.
I know that years ago, we actually had ambulance districts because Blooming Grove was trying to get switched over to include Hamptonburg. Hamptonburg, we've always serviced, and we've done a lot with the nursing home over there, but they were not really included, so it was kind of picked up from all different. This is definitely an issue, and it's something that we really need to look at. I would have no problem with putting it in for, for us as a county to start looking at something to fix this. I know that we're one of the taxing districts, so we've been paying taxes for the ambulance and for our ALSs for, I don't know, Katie, how many years?
Quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time for us and stuff. And even us with that, we still have a retention problem and we still have issues where if you call at certain times, there's people that, because it's the same small group of people that are doing all the volunteering. And now that the older ones who have been there for forever are starting to retire and not get there, we're having a hard time recruiting the younger ones to stay. So I don't know if there's an incentive for after college more so than before college. It's great to get the kids in there to volunteer, but I think we're looking at the wrong age bracket. I think we should be looking at the 25 and up because they're out of college, they're situated, they're getting their jobs, they're looking at settling in our communities, and they want to get involved. So if we actually do any type of recruitment, I think we should look at the, that age bracket rather than the younger ones. The younger ones are great, but even with the fire companies, it's the same thing. They go to college and they settle someplace else or their job takes them, because they're going wherever the work is. So this is, I'll get all the information for you on this because we did have, Shenango County was the one that actually was talking about it. And they go from Binghamton all the way to Deposit, and they have 3 colleges in the area, which, state colleges.
Right.
So when they have to respond to something, they just don't have it. So they are looking at doing something that will actually fix this crisis. So, the information is out there, the groups are out there, they are starting to work on it. So I think it behooves us to actually see what's going on in the other counties, as well as from the state and what they're looking to propose, so that we can look at it and at least put our 2 cents in and see how we can benefit as residents in this county.
Yeah, it's a crisis both on the volunteer side, and I'll be honest with you, it's a crisis even on the paid side. As Brendan has said before, the money that these EMTs or paramedics are receiving is not enough to keep them in this job for any length of time. I'll be honest with you, Legoland is paying EMTs more money today than the EMTs that are riding on ambulances. It's just a problem throughout the state.
Yeah, they tell me that the EMT's average pay is about $16 an hour, and that paramedics get like $31 to $33 an hour. So that is the jump to the police and fire for the career people. They also told me that a paramedic has the equivalent of an associate's degree, and they are a few credits away from becoming nurses at that point, the 2-year nurse, where they can get significantly more money in the hospital. So it really has to be someone who really wants to ride on an ambulance, unless they're doing it on a per diem basis, to make a difference. And then they pointed out that there's a cost to EMT school. In other words, you can join a fire department at no cost. You join an ambulance corps, I guess you have to pay your own way as an EMT and potentially get reimbursed if you passed or some course.
That's correct. Right now, they have to pay their own way unless their agency pays for them. And then after they pass the class, they're fully reimbursed by the state.
Right. So I guess we have all these issues here. I wanted to point this out to everybody because I think when we go back to our own communities, everybody's in the same boat, whether they're paid or not. I think for now, the towns are going to have to subsidize these ambulance corps based on the numbers. I have permission from Chief Michael Big in New Windsor to share the numbers. He told me that New Windsor EMS billed $2.6 million over the last year. They had to write off $1.1 million of that, and they only collected $859,000. Their payroll in a week is $20,000 because they run 2 ambulances with ALS. And so the numbers don't work without municipal support. It's impossible. And there's some creative things. I know the town of Cornwall went into a municipal agreement with New Windsor because they are so well run to get help in the event we need it. They provide the ALS. That was a battle too. The state didn't want to give us a certificate of need. I had to write a letter. Brendan had to write a letter. Frank had to write a letter because they said another town shouldn't be doing it. It should be a private service. Well, the private service wasn't able to do it. New Windsor was. So at this point, we won that agreement, but is that permanent, the con?
I don't believe that's permanent. I think that's only good till January, correct?
Right. So even that's still a battle. The certificate of need, I know we're all familiar with certificates of need on the nursing home side. So it's the same battle there. So the state has to become more cooperative as well. But for today's purposes, I would like permission to give Betsy a job to write a resolution to our federal partners asking to change the Medicare Medicaid rate. I don't know, it may fall on deaf ears, but I don't have it written today, but I gave you the numbers of what I think the rates are. Frank confirmed that he believes that is true. So with your permission, I would like to work with Betsy to write up a resolution to our federal partners asking for those numbers to go up from our federal partners and have it ready before all the caucuses so that we can address it. Is that all right, or? Well, yeah, because otherwise it has to be as consent, and obviously we've talked through. So, yeah, I would like the committee to say, yes, make that a resolution, and then we can tweak it in our individual caucuses if you don't like it. Would that be all right with everybody? All right, so Kathy, you're going to make that motion. Joel, go ahead.
But I believe Commissioner Casey, you said at one point you requested that the state make EMS a priority service, correct?
Yeah, an essential service, so
Essential
that's,
service, like
that's
fire.
that's been kicked around up there, it's up there. You know, Jen Metzger was working on that, so.
And in my opinion, I think that would be a stronger resolution for this committee.
Problem is you already have, they're already overlapping tax districts, so you talk about, you would dismantle EMS tax district, it would be quite the undertaking. And, you know, you have the fire doesn't want to do it, you know, it's one of those deals. So the only way to do it would be to take, you know, to go like the South model, where the county just does everything.
And unfortunately, at this point in time, the fire districts cannot bill for EMS services. Only EMS agencies can. Not in New York State. They can't,
No fire departments in New York State are billing for EMS?
no. They're not allowed at this time. It's actually on the table, but still at this point hasn't been approved.
Kathy?
Just a comment with that. A lot of our fire districts are smaller districts, where our ambulance districts are a lot bigger and they cover. So it would be very difficult to say which ambulance corps is going with which of the fire districts. So I think that, you know, looking at a countywide or something, or starting with the request to raise the money on the services that they get reimbursed, and then we can look at the second one as far as making it an essential service. But it's a lot of work, so I agree with both of those
It's going to be a huge
suggestions.
undertaking. It's going to be a huge undertaking, but in my opinion, you can't tell me it's the same cost to run an ambulance in Manhattan that it is to run an ambulance in Pottsdale. So I don't see the purpose of raising the federal funds, because you would have to calculate the costs nationwide. It's going to cost you more to run an ambulance in Staten Island than it is in Ohio.
Right, but we're still getting peanuts. $120 isn't getting you anywhere.
I
So
get it.
any increase is a blessing to any of these agencies.
I get it.
And quite frankly, I only care about Orange County right now. So do you want to get us the information on that essential service? Because I don't know enough about that to write a resolution. And
Yeah, we can get you that.
so if you could shoot that to Jean or Betsy, and then we can look at that. But for now, I would like to focus on the Medicaid, Medicare rates, because I don't know enough. I don't know how the essential services changes our issue. It just means that the towns have to provide ambulance service?
Correct. In other words, they'll be forced to cover these ambulances.
Right, so all we're doing is putting more pressure on our towns by making that resolution. I think we should talk to our individual town board members before we do something like that, to make sure that that's something they want us to do. It might cause an undue burden on some. Yeah, I mean, the answer is get a tax district, get it funded properly, and go forward, but we still have personnel issues, because there's not a business out there that has enough employees, and when you're talking about $16, they can make that doing something with zero stress, as opposed to an EMT driving an ambulance and working on somebody and possibly getting sick themselves or what have you. So a resolution for Medicare and Medicaid. Kathy, you said you wanted to make that motion. Does everybody want to sponsor that on this committee? Is that a yes? Okay, I see head shaking. So we'll all sponsor it. Betsy and I will put it together. We'll have it prepared for all the caucuses, and hopefully we can move forward with that with our federal partners. And is there anything else we can ask our state partners? Is there a suggestion you can make with respect to that? Or should we stick with the feds for the Medicare, Medicaid at this point?
I would say the only thing on the state side is to make it an essential service. That's the really thing that has to be done. Because I've been to meetings even with our town fathers in some cases, trying to push them to do something to help some of these ambulance corps, and it kind of goes on deaf ears, to be honest with you.
Right. I don't think there's a taxpayer out there, if they understood the issue, that they may call for an ambulance, it's not coming if you don't provide a tax district. I'm sure they would all want to be on board with that, to fund it properly. I just don't think people understand the full scope of the issue, and that's our job as legislators to bring back to our communities, I think. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? I know we're already on overtime here with respect to the next committee. All right. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll look forward to your documents on essential service.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the desk is clear. Does anybody have anything else? Motion to adjourn is in order? That's Joel and Kathy. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.